So I dated a YouTuber. We went out for about a year and it was alright, but they were so emotionally invested in their channel that they constantly neglected me and made me feel like I wasn't a priority. Not really important why we broke up, but we broke up. Then I get a bunch of messages from friends about 3 months later telling me to go to their channel. I'm pretty much done with them, but I do, and I realize they made a video about me where they claim I was emotionally abusive. I continue to get messages from strangers telling me how awful a person I was and how they hoped I died through various means. So I sued my ex. It ruined them. I knew they were financially in a bad spot and they likely couldn't afford court fees, but the case dragged. They made a video about not being able to afford court costs and such, and how it was going to ruin them. After which a bunch of friends started telling me to just let it go and move on, but I had sunk money into the case as well. It wasn't cheap for me either, so I didn't just let it go. Eventually the judge ruled in my favor and I received a total of nothing from my ex. But it meant I could link to the result in the comment section of every video she tried to frame me as the bad guy, because in our state, court proceedings are public record. Suddenly her viewership dropped and she blamed me for ruining her life. A bunch of my friends said I went too far and should have just taken the court win and left her alone. Was I the idiot? Reading this story gave me a sense of dread. From the first comment where he complains how much time she spends on YouTube to his friends telling him to drop it. On the surface, it seems so plausible and reasonable, but something doesn't feel quite right. I think his friends telling him not to sue and him going ahead was the red flag. Friends would not usually encourage you to drop an issue where you're in the right. And I can't imagine doing this to the worst of my exes. It sounds like he further compounded the emotional abuse she felt by ruining her career and ruining her financially. OP, you are the idiot. Everyone's the idiot here. Your ex is an idiot for doxing you in a video. You're an idiot, not because you took her to court over it, but because you've been deliberately vague in your posts and in responses to questions about how your ex could have viewed you as abusive. You are clearly curating your post to avoid discussing the specific claims she is making against you, which leads me to believe there is likely fault on both sides. This seems like a bitter breakup with escalation on both sides. Everyone's the idiot here. I do believe that she probably did prioritize her YouTube channel over the relationship, and I've seen enough breakup videos to know that without even trying fans will swarm at the opportunity to blame. But from the lack of information here, the evasive answers, and the fact that, what I'm assuming were, longtime friends even felt you were going too far, I'm gotta believe that you weren't so innocent in this either. You were willing to financially ruin yourself and sacrifice time and friendships for literally nothing. I, 26, have very thick, coarse and coily 4C hair. Growing up, there weren't any salons that specialized in afro-textured hair where I lived. My mom, she is white, did my hair to the best of her abilities, and I took over in my teenage years with the help of my aunt and cousins. I've learned how to wash, detangle, cut and braid my hair all by myself. I have a small setup in my house like a one-person saloon that I used. I had my son about 10 months ago. Unfortunately, I've had to stop just because of lack of time and also him wanting to play with the stuff that I use for my hair, most of which are hazardous. I recently found a saloon that specializes in natural hair. My 2 visits went great. The stylist and her assistant did a great job and I ended up tipping them separately, about 40% of the price. I had an appointment yesterday for 9:30 a.m. to get Senegalese twists. On their website, the price was listed as $250 for the size and length that I wanted. I plan to tip the stylist and her assistant an additional $50, so my overall budget for this appointment was $300. I was told that for the style that I wanted, they'd be done 12 p.m. When I got there at 9:30, my appointment time, they were still working with a previous client and didn't start with me until around 10:45. They finished my hair around 1:30 p.m. After she was done, she told me the price was now $300 because they have a policy to add a 20% upcharge during surge times, 12 to 4 p.m., their busiest saloon hours. I refused to pay the additional charge on the basis that it wasn't my fault that they didn't begin to work on my hair on time. She tried to say that it took a longer time because of the texture of my hair and length, and even if they had started at 9:30 a.m., it would have taken longer. I told her there's no way that I'd pay the additional fee. I ended up paying $250 and didn't add a tip. She seemed annoyed and frustrated. I told my partner about this, and he said I'm the idiot because I could have just added the $50 that I intended to use as a tip and that the stylist could get into trouble with the owner of the saloon for not charging the surge price. I feel like that's still not my problem, and if she hadn't tried to force me into paying a fee that was more than the agreed upon, I would have tipped. I'm now wondering I'm the idiot since I haven't really been to saloons that much and may not really understand the client-stylist expectations. Not the idiot. If she had started your hair on time, you'd conceivably been done by 12, and even if it had gone slightly over, surge prices should only include procedures that start between those times. It almost seems a setup or trick, start late, run into surge times, charge extra. If you like the place and the service they provided, I'd talk to the owner. It may have been the stylist, it might have been a miscommunication, but you were definitely not at fault. Not the idiot, you budgeted for $300, $250 plus tip, so personally I would have just paid the $300, $250 plus surcharge, and not tipped. But I can't call you an idiot for choosing not to. The appointment started over an hour late. She should have called to you know. That was bad service. Plus, she wasted over an hour of your time. And then she wants to charge you $50 for wasting it. Hell that. I would have just straight up told her, I don't owe the surcharge. You're the one who started late. But I was going to tip you the $50, so here's the $300. And let her figure out if she wants to call it a tip or surcharge. Not the idiot, you had an appointment set for 9:30 a.m, they cause your appointment to start a whopping hour and 15 minutes late. You should not be on the hook for that surge fee since it's 100% their fault the appointment went past 12 p.m. In fact, you actually deserved a discount. The whole point of setting an appointment is to start on time. Otherwise, what's the reason for booking? If that's me, they're lucky you even stayed. If I booked an appointment for 9:30 and walked in to see someone sitting there, I'd be upset. My wife and I just had a real blowout fight and I'm beginning to panic a little bit and would really appreciate a perspective on where I stand. When our kids were born, my wife was a very attentive mother. Now that they're older and slightly more independent, 4 and 6, it's as though she's reordered her priorities to back before we had kids. A few examples are she'll get dinner for herself, but choose somewhere with all very spicy food and no kid-friendly options. Our kids like a lot of healthy foods that take literally minutes to make. They'll eat most raw veggies, grilled chicken, turkey and cheese sandwiches, scrambled eggs. You don't have to make each one an elaborate personal meal. When I confronted her on this, she said I shouldn't have to forego the meal that I want just because it's not their taste. They're kids. They can adapt their taste. She knows they can't tolerate spicy foods yet. She didn't even attempt to get them plain bean burritos or anything. The oldest recently went to day camp for the first time over a school break. My wife dropped her off 3 hours early so she could take a yoga class. My 6-year-old had to sit in an office with no campers or camp activities, just a secretary who didn't know what to do with this very early kid. Again, when confronted, she said, someone was watching her. I called and they said it was okay. Why should I miss my class if they could take her? What set me over the edge and started this fight is my wife was doing some paperwork and one of the kids fell, hit their head, and needed to be consoled. She waited to console them until after she had finished her paperwork, even though it had no deadline or anything. I'm afforded the option to work remotely, so I handle most of the childcare. It's not at all as though she doesn't have the chance for personal time. I've brought up my concerns kind of passively again and again, e.g. Hey, maybe next time you could take a later yoga class or miss a day. It seems like she was very scared and upset by arriving so early with no one to talk to and nothing to do. Or it's important the kids get something they can eat, no matter what else is going on. I've also tried to start open-ended conversations about the dilemma in general, but she doesn't think there's a problem the way I do. After the consolation incident, I took her aside and said, look, you and I don't come first anymore. That is the responsibility we took on when we had kids. She said she gives them everything they need, and I got frustrated and said, parenting is way more than just keeping them alive. What you're doing by ignoring their crying so you can finish a form when you want to is a selfish abdication of responsibility. That really set her off, and by the end she said she needed some space from me tonight. I offered to go to a hotel, but she insisted she go instead, which I take as a bad sign as to how wildly I screwed up. Was my commentary justified, or am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She sounds very selfish. The fact that she left for the night reinforces this. She escaped from her motherly duties once again. I cannot imagine rearing my kids this way. And the spicy food thing. She can satisfy her cravings and also provide them with something they like. Maybe there is an underlying issue, mental or other, that is causing her to act this way. It might be worth trying couples counseling to see if she will open up about her feelings, especially if she hasn't always been this way. Everyone's the idiot here. Why didn't you console your child? Was the yoga thing due to break? Did you have to adjust your schedule during this time? Don't you think kids should try new foods outside their comfort zone? Lots of kids eat more interesting varieties of food. Also, why didn't you say no to the restaurant or offer to make the kids food? Are you honestly telling me that at a Mexican restaurant, there were no options they'd eat? Why is she in charge of everything you listed? Not the idiot. Now, from the info you've given us, it doesn't seem like you are an idiot because I agree, if you have children you can't just have them to enjoy them as cute babies. You have to parent them and raise them, and as they grow they'll obviously need a lot more time. Plus, a 4 and 6-year-old are far from capable of self-entertainment and cooking for themselves. I suggested you find out some kind of a middle ground with your wife and figure out how to divide the time, because the children should not be suffering in this passive battle. About 20 years ago my dad left my mum to start a new family when I was 11. My mum didn't know English, had no clue how to even pay bills, but somehow managed to pull everything together. She's a freaking legend, but this experience imprinted on me the need that any partner I have in future has to be self-sufficient and capable of looking after themselves. Enter my girlfriend of 2 years. She's a unigrad with a good job, but still lives at home with her parents. As clued on as she is about her professional field, I'm not exaggerating when I say she doesn't even know how to basic crap like post a freaking letter. Whenever she's asked for help with something, what she really is asking for is for someone to take responsibility for the task. A couple of examples from the last few months. 1. She bought her first car, an absolute crap heap, but it is a first car, and asked me to look it over afterwards. So I tried to show her some basic maintenance things she can do on her own drive, how to check the tire pressure, the oil, headlights, explaining fuel reserves etc, etc. She showed no interest, and come a couple of months later the thing had clunked out. I went out to have a look, and there was no oil in the freaking thing. 2. We booked a holiday for 2 weeks to tour Southeast Asia. I asked her if her passport had at least a year on it. She said yes. At the airport, she found out it was expired after I had a look at it. I asked why she hadn't checked to renew it. Her dad was the one who had sent the application in 10 years ago, and she didn't know it had to be sent in to be renewed. What the hell? The second one is what caused her to blow up at me. I returned from the holiday. She didn't answer any of my calls or text whilst I was abroad, and once I was back she chewed me out for abandoning her at the airport. It's a 20-minute train ride from our city center, and the terminus is at the airport, that I should have double-checked her documentation, since I know about this sort of stuff. I told her, sorry, but I ain't pissing 3,000 pounds up the wall, because you didn't bother to check the exact thing I asked you to. It's really frustrating because I don't want to treat a partner like a child, like my dad did with my mum. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. If she is an adult then she is, and should be, responsible for doing adult things. You even asked her well in advance to make sure her passport had at least a year on it. There was no reason you should have been punished for her failure to complete such a basic task by missing out on the trip. I would sit down with her and tell her exactly what you've said here, that you want a partner, not a child. If she is unable or unwilling to act like an adult then you are not compatible. Hard not the idiot. Here in Brazil we have a word to describe your girlfriend, folgada, or folgado for guys, which is a mixture of laziness plus opportunistic plus entitlement plus freeloading, which results in the people believing others should do stuff for them for whatever reason. It's like that person that every time you describe one of their episodes, it's like the freaking nerve of this lazy idiot. Your girlfriend is not dependent, she is super capable of doing whatever, she is just not interested and believes others should picking it up for her. Everyone's the idiot here. Though I may change it. You've listed 2 examples which I don't think prove your point about your partner being like lazy or dependent. She didn't maintain maintenance on her car and she didn't check her passport. I don't think the passport thing is a basic life skill. It was her first time traveling on her own and she screwed it up, but she also shouldn't have gotten upset at you for going on the trip already. The oil thing was stupid, but I don't know enough about your girlfriend to know if she'll make the same mistake now that she knows. Background. My boyfriend, G, 27, and I, 27, met in my hometown. I worked front desk at a hotel, mostly second and third shifts, for a year. Things were good, but I wasn't in love with it. G was working at a truck company as a diesel mechanic. He moved almost 8 hours south from his hometown to go to school and put so many hours of training into this job. We moved in together after 4 months of dating. G started getting frustrated with his job, feeling disrespected by the way they were treating him. G found a new job, and we moved about 1.5 hours north. Almost a year after moving, I worked at the same chain of hotel, same position, same hours. G started coming home frustrated at his work schedule, second shift, and was having problems with the supervisor. He'd been away from his family for 7 years and wanted to move back. At first, I was not for it. I was super close with my family, and I had never lived more than a 2-hour drive away. He complained about work and made me feel bad he was away from his family. I gave in after he told me if we moved, he'd be ready to have kids. I've always wanted to be a mom, something he knows would make me move. He found a place close to his dad's to work, but this meant that he would take a break from trucks and work in another field. We both quit our jobs and moved 7 hours north to his hometown and have been staying at his dad's. Now I'm working at a gift shop. This was a summer job, but because of events, I've been left in charge of running the shop. I love this job and I don't dread going into work. I enjoy doing inventory, rearranging items, cleaning, and talking with the customers that come in. I get to learn about the history of the area and I'm able to pass that knowledge to others. History has always fascinated me, so this has been perfect. When we moved here, I was so depressed. I barely left the house except to go fill out job apps. I had no friends or family close by. Over time I made friends through G, his family became my family, I made friends at work and I'm happy. I can see making a life with a family here. The issue is, G wants to go back to working at his last company after they built a shop 2 hours away from us, saying he knows he had it good there. This means that I'd have to quit my job so he can work on trucks. I'm afraid that if we move, I'll get depressed again. He says we can go up every weekend if we move, but he said that when we were 1.5 hours away from my family and got mad if we went down more than twice in 1 month. I would do anything to make him happy, but I feel like I changed my life around enough to make him happy. He acts like I'm being selfish and ungrateful that he pays most of the bills. Now he doesn't have good days at work and hates his life and gets mad at me for the little things. Am I the idiot for not quitting my job so he can be happy again? Oh girl, do not do it. There are some major red flags here. Definitely not the idiot for not wanting to give up a job that you love so he can quit yet another job that he hates. It doesn't seem like he's the type to be happy anywhere, and you definitely do not need that negativity to rule your life. And hate to say it, but he's very obviously using your desire for kids to manipulate you. Please reevaluate this relationship. Stay at the job you love, in a place that you're happy and fulfilled. Not the idiot. You need to realize that you are not responsible for his happiness. If he grows to hate his life everywhere he goes, the issue is with him, not his location. You need to stop putting his needs ahead of your own, since he clearly doesn't give you the same consideration. If you set a precedent of subservience to his needs, you'll end up stuck with the same cycle forever. Trust me, it will be the same song and dance at the other job if you move back, just like the last 3 times. Your boyfriend sounds like a malcontent. Someone who is always looking for something else to make him happy. My sister's ex-husband was like that. Until he moved from something else to someone else. He never took control of his own happiness and expected the world to provide him with said happiness. Happiness is a state of mind, and your boyfriend doesn't sound like he will ever be happy. Add in the manipulation of the carrot having children, I don't think this is the man for you. Not the idiot.